The following episode contains language and descriptions of violence and self-harm. It may not be appropriate for all listeners, but it was my life. Discretion is advised. What up, what up? Welcome back to another episode of Roll Call with Chappie. You know what the deal is. I always got special treats for you guys. This one's from Austin, Texas. So introduce yourself real quick, and I'm excited to share this one for you guys. And I don't even know too much about his story, except what I creeped on your Instagram, so I'm just as excited to hear this as I'm sure all the guests are. So introduce yourself, bro, please.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? Pleasure to be here. My name is Brody Kern. I'm currently the CEO of Wake Up Wealthy, which we'll talk about, like how I got into that, what it is, and then I'm also CEO at a larger venture called Logic Ventures, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But I've got a super interesting story. Interesting upbringing, challenging childhood, battle with addiction, and ending up in rehab at a super young age, and getting my start in business early. And so been in the game now for quite a while. I got into business at 21, just turned 29. I'm a family man.
Damn.
And my 20s have been a trip.
Tell them the most
wild.
important part, probably 6 years sober.
6 years sober, yeah. And so sobriety was the catalyst for everything. You know what I mean? I went to rehab at 21, and that was my first bit of exposure to looking inward and really starting to take a real audit and inventory of what was going on with me, and starting to heal some of that shit that I was going through. And then you get a taste of that, and it's really, really hard to stop.
I cannot wait to get into that, but I want to get into it before, I always like to get into everyone's upbringings because we all had different paths down there. So what was it like for you growing up, and where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I was born in Santa Cruz, California, and I was born to two super young parents. My parents were 17 when they had me, and they were really never together. And so my mom at some point when I was 3-4 years old was like, hey, I'm going to move out to Missouri because it's super cheap and I can get into nursing school out there. And so she was like, I'm taking Brody. And I've always had the utmost respect for my father because he was a child at this point, you know what I mean? And he just packed up everything he knew and left. And, they weren't together at this point. And so he was moving across the country for me.
Really?
And,
wow.
Yeah. And so, just working whatever job he could. My dad, got a job in the pest control industry whenever I was young. And, now he's, for being a guy who barely graduated high school, he's really worked his way up and is known nationally inside of the pest control industry. But that's another story. We move out to Missouri. This is the 90s in the Midwest. There wasn't a ton going on in Springfield, Missouri at that time. Yeah. And so my parents and I, we kind of grew up together. And so I had this really interesting.
You're an only child?
I was an only child for 10 years.
Okay.
And so I had this really interesting dynamic where my mother was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and
this is my shit, bro. I love this.
Yeah, my mom was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and a functioning one. I mean, she had a great nursing job. She was a really respected nurse, but
real quick, were you a functioning type? Because I was so anti-functioning.
No. I was completely not
zero
functional.
School, zero job, zero anything. It's all drugs and stealing.
Yeah,
shit
I mean, I was a crawl to the handle drunk.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And so yeah, my childhood, my mom was totally dysfunctional and pretty abusive, and then my dad was really tremendous. And so whenever I was 7, my dad got remarried to my stepmom, and so I had this super interesting contrast, and I split time 50-50, right?
Okay.
And so part of my childhood was absolute chaos. You know what I mean? I'm hiding. I'm trying to stay under the radar, and I was an only child there, so I was the punching bag. You know what I mean? And I was really
you're counting on the days so you get to go back to your dad's or something.
Yeah, totally. You know what I mean? And getting off the bus for school was the worst part of my day.
Oh,
right?
Man,
on days where I was at my mom's house, and but at my dad's house, I had this household where I experienced what a family should look like. I have brothers who are 10 and 15 years younger than me, and we were a real family, and I was a kid who I kept it all together. I was super social. I had friends. I was tremendous at baseball.
Look like a baseball player.
Yeah, I played really, by the time I was 8, I was
shortstop or what?
I played catcher.
Okay.
And so by the time I was 8, I was playing 150 games a year, travel all the time. Yeah. And so that kept me on the rails for a long time. You know what I mean? But then okay, so I started experimenting with hard drugs early. I mean, 16, I was doing blow, and taking Xanax, and I fell in love with partying, and I still played baseball through my senior year, had some offers to go on and play in college, but ultimately.
Did you graduate high school?
Yeah, I graduated high school.
Cool. You're the third guest of mine that's graduated high school, so congrats.
That's
bro.
bizarre, dude. That's wild.
I've had some big players on here, bro.
Yeah, so I graduated high school, decided that I wanted to not play baseball in college, and I wanted to go to a big state school and party and live that life. And so I went ended up like going to University of Missouri, Mizzou in Columbia, and had a blast for a couple years. You know what I mean? Like I joined a fraternity up there, and it was really like tearing it up. Like, you know, grades were like whatever. Like I just like it was a huge school. Like all my grades were based on like 5 tests, and I could like cram and pass that.
Okay.
But once I left baseball, like I didn't realize how much of my identity was wrapped up in that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And how much structure that gave to my life. I just like hadn't even computed that thought yet. And so I replaced it with social life, with partying and going out and like, you know, I had like come into some money at the time from like a injury settlement that I had. And so I like had tons of cash in college. And then I was like like dealing what I could to like support my habits. And, you know, I was partying 7 days a week. Right. And so after a couple of years of that, like the progression that most like addicts and alcoholics take in like 15, 20 years, I did in like 4. You know what I mean? The year that I was 21, I overdosed like a shitload of times. And it was like Monday through Friday, I would like get wasted, go out, do, you know, somewhere between like 3.5 and 10 grams of blow.
Yeah.
And then like come the weekend, I was so strung out and torched.
Do you think back like how lucky we are not to be dead and like overdosing?
100%.
Because like how many friends I have that I've lost, I'm like,
Same.
I've overdosed so many times when it's like I still have a hard. Sometimes I had a hard time like with survivor's remorse. You know what I'm saying?
Same, dude. I like really battled that. So like I got really really addicted to Xanax for a long time, and it's like the like I don't know if you've ever fucked around with bars, but like
I only did it when I was like dope sick from heroin. I was trying to sleep.
Trying to sleep, yeah. And so like the tolerance build on Xanax is unlike any other drug that I've ever seen.
Okay.
And so I got to a point where I was like eating like insane amounts of Xanax.
Those bars will fuck you.
They'll fuck you
too.
up, dude.
Yeah.
And so like I was eating insane amounts of Xanax, and like the only time that I like ever met, so I had this one buddy he was the only person who I had ever seen who could like eat as much Xanax as me. And
That's a good person to hang out with.
Totally, dude. We were messed together. And he ended up dying, and like I actually like had a lot of like survivor's remorse with that I had to work through. Like I still think about him all the time.
For sure.
I mean, like he lived on my couch for like 6 months. Like we were fucking tight.
Yeah. Damn, man, that's brutal. So what happened next there for you?
Dude, and so like, you know, all of a sudden, like the way that I was living my life, like it was like obvious that it wasn't like I wasn't having like I could convince myself that I was having fun.
Were you realizing that you knew that it was a problem, or were you just
Yeah,
like,
I mean, dude, at this point,
and how big of a problem did you think it was?
I mean, I was downplaying it like every person does, but like, I mean, at this point, come like the end of my sophomore year in college, like, I mean, I had maybe had 25 people be like, you need to stop. Like, this is a major problem. Like, we're fucking worried about you. And I'd be like, fuck off. Like, I'm chilling. You know what I mean? I'm having fun.
Yeah.
But the consequences kept getting higher, like waking up to like serious personal injury, right? From just like being belligerent, waking up to like me like destroying some sort of relationship that I had, me waking up to like, I mean, dude, one time I lost my car for like 3 weeks. You know what I mean? It's like the consequences just kept fucking stacking up. Yeah. And then like turning the corner into my junior year, I was so hooked on alcohol and benzos, which like most people probably don't know, but these are the only 2 things that'll kill you cold turkey. Right, like
I know alcohol could,
alcohol and benzos, like those can actually kill you. Like you kick heroin, which I've kicked heroin a number of times, like you'll feel like you're dying, but like you'll survive.
You're not gonna die.
Yeah, and so like I actually had multiple times where I was like trying to stop shit and ended up having seizures. And so like that was kind of like that was when things started getting really bad. You know what I mean? When I started like having seizures and ending up in the hospital like all the time. And then one time I ended up in the hospital like there at the very end. So I had these 3 roommates at the time in this apartment, and I had pretty much burned that like all 3 relationships. They were like, you got to get the fuck out. This was like end of first semester junior year. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to like just go home and like back to Springfield and like try to get my shit together. And I go back.
Did you real quick? Were you ever? Because I had the hardest time. Like, I was so like angry and jealous of people that could just drink normally. So like, and dude, you know, so I didn't want to give it up because I was like so mad that I just couldn't do it. I felt like I couldn't have fun like normal people.
That came for
me.
Did
you have that over you or no?
That came for me later. Like at this point, like I was like, at this point I was still like the way I do things is the right way. Like you guys are fucking pussies.
Yeah, all right.
You know what I mean?
Pussies. I'm going back to saying.
Yeah, I'm like you guys don't even know how to fucking party. Like, And so I like pretty much had burned all my relationships at Mizzou. Like I was in debt bad to like some sketchy dudes, and like I needed to get the fuck out of Dodge. And so I moved back down to Springfield. I enrolled at Missouri State there, which was just like a waste that semester, because I got home and like all my boys were doing heroin. All my hometown boys were doing heroin, which I had like never been exposed to. And so, you know, it's like I do heroin for the first time, and it's like I proceeded to do it for like 14 days in a row.
Yep.
Yeah, like I just didn't leave, and I just kept doing it. And so then it's like,
That's the worst drug, man.
totally, it's so gnarly. And so then that year, I like, you know, maybe a couple months after that time, I like ended up in the hospital 3 days in a row, like had overdosed. And like, I remember the first day I was like, whatever, anecdote.
Like, I fucked up.
Yeah, it's like, sorry. Second day I was like, wow, that one hurt. And then I was like, okay, like I'm going to fucking take it easy. You know what I mean? I really need to like, there's something going on here. And then I mean, I was super just like beat down, defeated. And I ended up being like, okay, I'm just going to like go have a beer, take the edge off. And maybe like 3 hours later, I get like peeled off the concrete downtown. And these cops have me blowing a breathalyzer, and I blew a .457 BAC.
Stop.
Yeah.
How are you like alive?
Dude, that's the thing. Like most people like should
That's like
technically die at
alcohol poisoning.
.4. Yeah,
for sure.
And so
half your blood's alcohol.
yeah, dude. And so half my blood was alcohol,
Yeah.
right? And so I like
It was like clear almost.
yeah, and so they drove me straight to the hospital. I woke up in the hospital in like 4-point restraints. I guess I was being like a real asshole
sure.
when I came in. And dude, I was like, I didn't really know what was going on. And I kind of like, dude, I like got down and I like gnawed these restraints off with my teeth. And then I like, and this is like dude, this is like one of the most
So crazy thinking back to the shit we did. It was like normal back then.
Totally,
you know what I
dude.
mean?
This is like one of the most painful memories of my life. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I woke up and this guy was basically like, look, man, like, I know who you are. I went to nursing school with your mom, and like, you're going to die. And I was like, fuck off. And I like ripped these restraints off, and I like go to move, and like, there was a catheter in my dick. And like, I ripped this thing out, like, not even thinking. It was like instant thought. I ripped this thing out,
Yeah,
and like
goosebumps thinking about
try to fucking make a run for it, and like got detained again. And they were like,
No
no,
way.
like, you're going to die. Like, you're going to die. And I went home, and at this point, my parents were already, like, my dad, like, my mom and I weren't speaking, like, we don't speak. But my dad was like, look, like, you can't come around here. You know what I mean? Like, you have young brothers, and like, this is so heavy on the family, and like,
You're what, 22 at this time, probably?
I was 21.
Okay.
And they're like, you know, like, you're killing yourself. You clearly have like no desire to like you're
anything
reckless.
positive, yeah.
Like, and I was like, all right, like, whatever, like, fuck you. And I like ended up going to my mom's house, which was like super rare, but I didn't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
And I passed out for like 8 hours, and just slept it off, maybe even like 12. And then, cause like when I left the hospital that morning, it was 6 a.m.
Okay.
And so I like woke up from that nap, and my dad was like, you need to go to rehab. And I was like, no, like, I don't think so. Like, fuck that. And I like, dude, sat there for a minute and just like, in a brief moment of clarity, was like, fuck it.
And I'll go?
I'll go. I was like, what do I like?
What do I have to lose?
I've got nothing else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, maybe I do. Like, maybe I do.
Did you think you were an addict and had a full-on problem, or did you think just like
Oh
the
no,
party lot?
I knew. I
Okay.
was one thing that I was never was in denial about the fact that I was an alcoholic and an addict.
Oh, 'cause
Like,
you saw growing up too, yeah.
I saw it growing up, and
sure.
like it was just like I was just so. I mean, you look at like the literature of AA and like the vernacular there. It's like I was so powerless. You know what I mean? Like there was
Consume my life. Like,
yeah, there was no questions about it. Like
Yeah.
my life, like that was my
Or
that
my
was
thing
my
when I was
God.
drinking, like I don't like go at night. Like I want to fucking go like at 10 a.m. or like whenever I can find the first person to go to the bar with me, I'll do it.
Dude, the second I could get my hands on anything, like
Yeah.
I would do it. Like,
Yep.
I mean, I remember thinking it one, like I remember having this thought one time where like I was like eating some Xanax with a buddy, and I was like, dude, I don't think there will ever be a point in my life where like I see a Xanax in front of me and don't eat it immediately.
Oh my
You know what I
God,
mean?
yeah.
And like that's like how I was, right?
sure.
I was like this, like anything that I can do to get shit into my body, like I'm gonna do.
So you don't
it.
have to feel yourself. And,
Yeah,
feel
like I mean,
what-
I was just so incapable of handling like what life had to deliver me. I couldn't even be alone with my own thoughts.
Yeah, damn, that's right. All right, so how is rehab? You go into rehab in St. Louis?
I went to rehab in Boonville, Missouri.
Okay.
There's literally nothing at this fucking place other than a rehab,
A
a
gas
Taco
station or
Bell,
something?
a McDonald's, and a church.
Okay.
And it's like those are and a Dairy Queen. Those are
right.
the only things in a Walmart.
Nice and healthy. I bet everybody's in shape in that town.
Yeah, dude. Like it's middle of nowhere, Missouri. I mean, it was fucking so redneck. Like it was crazy. But the rehab was it was a good spot. It was a 28-day inpatient facility.
Is this your first time in like recovery, like around the book and stuff?
Yep.
Was it a
First time.
12-step?
Yeah, it's 12-step.
Okay.
And so I dude, I went in and was just like, I'm gonna give this a real shot. Like,
Go with your deep, like your real true thoughts too, because people know they get sober. I want to like tell them the struggles even when you're still there too, because a lot of people, like especially in prison, that are listeners are fucking strung out right now, bro, and they want to get fucking help and they can't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's like, dude, like every addict, like coming in, like. I mean, it was really refreshing. Like I came in there and there were some struggles that I had there for sure. I'll go into those. But like initially it was really refreshing because it's like, and so like you're a 12-step guy. And so it's like, imagine this, it's like reading the back half of the big book, right? It's like, there were all these things that I felt so isolated and alone in that I was struggling with.
You're the only one that had those thoughts.
Yeah, I was the only one who had those thoughts, right? And then I show up and there's 50 or 70 people or whatever at this treatment facility all experiencing the same things.
And look completely different. They're all the same thoughts up here.
Yeah,
right?
Same thoughts. People from all, like, you will never find a wider demographic than you do inside of a rehab.
100%.
And that was like really refreshing. I like for the first time in my life didn't feel so alone. And like I said, I mean, I was in class all day learning about the 12 steps, like learning about like, other people's experience and how they had healed and like watching people work through their shit.
Shit starts clicking too, and you're reading the stuff. You're like, damn, this is me, huh?
Shit starts clicking. And like, dude, I didn't do shit in that rehab center other than like read and chain cigarettes. You know what I mean? And so like, I mean, dude, I was just chaining cigarettes all day and like slamming books. I read like tons of nonfiction, tons of fiction books. Like I was just like passing time.
For sure.
And it was just like, I had never had that type of reset. I had never been away from my phone. But I remember like, I was in detox for like 7 days.
Okay.
I got kidney stones while I was in detox, which was like, and I think it was like related to like me like ripping that catheter out.
Probably.
And so that was like fucking brutal. That was number one. Like that was fucked up. And I woke up and just started pissing blood. And then like 2 seconds later was followed by this like excruciating pain. I mean, like that was fucked up.
Yeah, for sure. I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, dude, it was bad. And so, but then I remember I get out of detox and then you move into like this little cabin setup. You have a roommate, like I had another like male roommate and like it looks like a little hotel room with like 2 queen beds. And I remember like after you get out of detox, you can like go offsite to AA meetings. And so like a bunch of people from the treatment center go to AA meetings every night. And I remember going to an AA meeting and this dude picked up a chip for 32 years sober. And like, you would think that like naturally you'd be like, oh, that's tight. I was immediately like uncomfortable. I was immediately fucked up. I was like, dude, like really? I was like, I haven't stayed sober for 32 hours since I was like 16.
For sure.
And I was like, I don't know. I just can't see how that's possible for me. And so,
God, I had those same thoughts. Dude.
Yeah, I was like real.
I would see dudes getting long chips, and I would like be mad. I'm like, those dudes ain't an addict like me. That's what I would think.
Yeah, sure,
I'm like, they're
totally.
not as bad of a drug addict as me.
And so I was just like, dude, like I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. And it was like I came back, I was like crying, like just I went and did the opposite of what you're supposed to do. I like went and hid in a corner, like isolated myself. And finally someone found me and hit me with like a cliche AA fucking like
just God shot today. You don't about the 32 years right
like,
now.
Stay sober today, dude. And but it was really refreshing and like my mind was able to I was able to wrap my mind around that concept.
It's crazy how welcoming and cool those people are too, because people have such a stigma about like going to AA and trying the first meeting, and you go there and it's like you almost think the setup everyone's so nice. You're like, what's the catch, right?
Look, dude, AA like an AA meeting can get a little hairy, but it's like if you're around good solution, like there's no better place to like express what you're going through.
And the greatest thing is some can be hairy, and if you don't like that one, go to another meeting. You know what I'm saying? I always tell people that like certain meetings ain't for everybody. I go to certain meetings, I'm like, I got nothing out of it. I couldn't stand that meeting.
That's the thing too, dude. And like if I can give a message to like addicts and alcoholics, it's like don't judge the 12 steps based on like anecdotal meetings. That's bad.
That's a good one.
It's like, look, the 12 steps are inarguable. And so like, here's what I'll say. Like, are there things that could probably be optimized about the 12-step program? Potentially, right? But for 100 years now, this decade, it is the only thing to ever keep people sober. Not doctors, not medicine, not fucking religion, not anything. Like, this is the only thing to keep people sober at scale. That is an inarguable fact of reality. And like, if you think that like you're special, you're fucking not. Like, you're another human being with the same types of patterns and the same types of bullshit. Like, AA works for everyone who works it, and that's a fact. And
Damn,
like,
bro, I got goosebumps from fucking head to toe, bro.
do I think that there are things that could be optimized about the program? Sure. But it's like you can't touch it because like the cost is people's lives.
And here's my thing. It's like, who am I to judge what the fuck AA thing? It works.
It's not broken.
Yeah, that's
it's
what
not
I'm saying.
broken.
Yeah. Should they fix some things? I agree completely. They should fix a couple things, but who gives a shit? It's not broken and it's working.
Facts, dude.
Yeah.
And so like,
and it'd be just like someone like me with the ego, like I come here 6 years sober, like let me change this whole fucking AA program. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But that's your
dude.
ego right there.
Well, and so here's what I'll tell people who are like in early recovery right now. Right, you're in your first year, first 6 months, first 2 years, even.
Yeah.
It's like, here's what I want to tell you. Like, maybe you're starting to get some sobriety, you're starting to feel good, but maybe you're not like materializing the success that you want in life. It's like, don't stop at AA. Read other associated literature. Read Wayne Dyer. Go out there and transition from 12 steps to guys like Wayne Dyer, who are a blend between personal development, spirituality, and 12 steps. Then branch into the other areas. Like AA is not necessary and sufficient to create a life of success and happiness that you want. It is necessary, right? But it is not sufficient on its own. Like,
For sure.
don't stop there. It's a necessary component if you're an addict and alcoholic. You have to go through the 12 steps to create the life you want. 100%. You have to be a part of that. Now, carry it on. Where else can you learn? What other modalities can you learn for healing yourself, for healing other people, for like carrying the message?
For sure.
Right? Like the 12th step doesn't just happen inside of the program, right? It's a way of life. It's a philosophy of giving so that you can receive.
God damn, that's fire,
That's
bro.
it, dude.
Yeah,
like,
this is it.
And it's like, continue to take those practices and those principles into all of your affairs, right?
I love
It's
recovery talk too. 'Cause
I love
people
recovery.
Are so scared about it too, and it's like when you can have some swag and know being sober is cool as shit too. You know, I just love that stuff.
Yeah, dude.
bro.
And don't get me wrong. Like, we all go through those things of like,
sure.
fuck, like I can't like I'm just so fucked up that like I can't be normal, but it's like fine. And it's like, look, dude, if there's something that like guys like you and I have learned who have like taken it to a new level, it's like the same reason that I'll drink myself to death is the same reason that like I make millions. You know what I mean? It's like,
And that's why I said you just got to flip that switch.
I've got a fucking edge. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
You
as
got
long
an
as
edge, and that's safe. That
as
helps
long
us,
as I
bro.
can keep my ego in check, like I can charge anything I want.
God damn, dude. I don't even have to talk on here. Just handle the rest of the show. That's literally what I preach all the time. Holy shit. All right, so rehab, you finished the 28 days?
Yep.
And then what are your plans there when you get out of treatment?
So I like get out
Do they
of
make a game plan for you, like kind of like work-wise, or is it's all about recovery?
Not really. It was just
Okay.
it was all recovery. You know what I mean? And I like didn't go to a halfway house or anything. I like went back to my dad's place for a little bit. He was like pretty supportive. And
Have
like
you stayed sober since?
no,
Any
I
relapse?
had a relapse.
Okay.
And so we'll get into that.
Cool.
And,
I like that, bro,
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, totally. And so like,
You're human.
yeah, 100%. And so I get out of rehab and like, I did have this huge chip on my shoulder. I mean, like all my friends are now graduating and like getting jobs and shit. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm the fuck up who dropped out to go to rehab, never went back. And so
To put it into perspective, it's not as bad as sitting in a fucking prison cell watching your boys play baseball for ASU, and you got
Facts.
10 years left, and these dudes, I was better than them on the teams I was playing on.
yeah, like that's
You know
gotta
what
be
I'm saying?
painful.
And I'm sitting here watching this, and I got 10 years left, and I'm like, I would literally cry watching the College World Series, bro, back then. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
dude. And see, like, I feel super lucky to like never really have gotten in much legal trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was kind of like,
It takes what it takes, bro.
like my consequences were like, I was just like, my body was
Dunzo.
it was dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had destroyed. I mean, I had like some like real like health scans done, and like I had like severe liver and heart damage.
Damn.
For a 21-year-old. Like
Yeah,
I
21-year-old
I
for
was
sure.
like I looked like a 40-year-old on the inside.
Cool.
And so that was brutal. But like anyway, so I get out of rehab, and I had this chip on my shoulder, but I also wasn't gonna rush it. I was like, I'm pretty serious about staying sober, and so. Before I went into rehab, I was like serving tables at this like pizza bar, and the owner of it was in recovery, and so whenever I left and came back, she kind of like was down to give me my job back. And so I was like, all right, like I can make enough to like get this apartment and like kind of figure my shit out. I'm just going to go to meetings every day and like take 6 months to like figure out what's good.
Life,
yeah. And so like I got this dog, which was like a horrible fucking move. I still have it.
Really?
I still have him. I got him 3 days after
My dog is my best decision I ever made, bro.
Dude, like my dog's just a fucking, like my dog's basically, he's a beagle. He's super loud and he's basically schizophrenic. And like I got him 3 days out of rehab and he's just such a reflection of like the mess that I was at that time, you know? And so like,
at least you always get to remember that shit.
yeah. And so like all my homies who know him, like he's just such a weird dog.
Yeah.
But so like I got him and so I had like, I was accountable to something. And I had this like job that was like enough to pay the bills. I was like playing like hella computer games at the time, like just like doing anything I could to stay sober. And so like after about 6 months, I was like, all right, like, you know, like sobriety's like a little less turbulent at this moment. And like I can probably start thinking about what I want to do. And so
how much of a relief is it when you finally like, not even over the hump, but when you finally just get some traction under your belt and you're not thinking about using every day, you know? Because my first day sober, like I've thought about using 24/7. You know what I'm saying?
Same.
Like literally 24/7.
Yeah.
And I remember like, even after 3 days, I was like, there's no fucking way in hell I'm gonna be able to keep doing this. You know what I'm saying? And it just gets easier and easier. Like every few days or weeks or months or whatever, it just gets easier, bro.
Well, and dude, I think like one of the interesting things is too, like I remember thinking at like 6 months, like, holy shit, I couldn't get any more clear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then at a year, you're like, oh God, you like didn't realize anything then.
And then once you get a few years, you're like, how the fuck did I not do this such a long time ago?
Right,
you know what I mean?
exactly. Like I remember like even like 5 years in being like, oh, I'm like learning new, like I'm like still hitting new levels of sobriety.
For sure, absolutely.
Which was fascinating. And because it's like, honestly, like I don't go to as much like AA as I should these days.
Same.
You know what I mean? Like I get a lot of that 12-step feeling through Wake Up Wealthy.
Yeah.
Like we'll talk about that, but it's like if I was ever feeling squirrely, like I would be at a meeting
I talk
in
recovery
under
almost
20
every day,
minutes
too, with people that are getting out of prison and shit too.
Yeah,
so it's in my
totally.
daily schedule.
And it's like, I think that's fine, but it's like, look, if you're under like 2 years sober, like go to a meeting every day.
100%.
Or like
100%.
Or like you're putting yourself at risk.
Yep, for sure.
And so I like around 6 months of sobriety, I was like, all right, I want to start like, it's time for me to start moving. You know, I was like finally for the first time in my life, I like didn't wake up and just immediately like not want to be alive. And I was like, all right, like I'll do something. And so I ended up like starting working on my real estate license because it was a low barrier to entry. It was like, take a class, pass a test, you're chilling, right? I was like, all right, I can fucking do that. Like school was always like, whatever, like not hard. And you know, I can do it. And so I did, but like the real estate test is so like wacky and hard. Like I passed, so you have to pass a federal exam and a state exam.
Okay.
And so I passed the federal the first time, and then I failed the state by 2 questions. And so it was like it was 50 questions, the state exam was, and I pretty much knew every question. But then for 3 more times, I was like, I would change the 2 answers that I got wrong to right, and then change 2 other ones, I guess. And so, like, I missed it by 2, like, quite a few times. And I remember,
way.
yeah, it was weird. I just couldn't. It was like a really tricky test.
Yeah,
you know, it was fucked up.
I don't do tests, bro. Yeah,
I was even a good test taker.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, and so I was like really mad. And so I was starting to get really spun out. I was like, this is your one shot, like, out of life, which is so silly to think
sure,
about.
yeah.
And I was
don't pass this real
like,
estate
I need
test,
to
you're
maybe
over.
I need to take Adderall. Like, maybe I need to.
Yeah.
Like, and I like almost did. And then I just didn't. I ended up passing the test. And so I got into real estate and I dominated. I mean, I sold 46 homes in Missouri in my first 8 months. Now, the average sales price was $100,000. I sold like $5 million in sales.
But once you get freshly sober, the hustle is like uncomparable,
Dude,
bro,
I mean,
right?
everybody at like Keller Williams in there was talking about me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, what is this? Because I was a buyer's agent on this team. I literally did 46 transactions. You know what I mean? It was insane.
Yeah.
And I mean, just knocking deals every fucking day. Bam, bam, bam. And I like took routes that other people weren't taking. I was obviously doing the normal like residential sales stuff, but then I got in with a couple of investors and like they were just really unhappy with real estate agents. You know what I mean? They're all just so fucking clueless for the most part. Like,
sure.
Don't get me wrong. Like the top like 3-5% of real estate agents, like there's real deal entrepreneurs out there.
For sure.
But because of the low barrier to entry, it's like a lot of them are fucking out to lunch. And that was ultimately what ended up having me like leave the real estate space. But for a while there, I was like working with these investors and I was like, look, like I'll do whatever you want. I'll write shit offers. Like, I just want to learn from like how you're doing this. And so built a couple really strong relationships. Like out of those 46 deals, probably 25 of them came from 2 investors.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, but I had like proven to them at
sure,
a young,
yeah.
I mean, I was a young, everybody was like I'm this kid,
Yeah.
you know, but I was like, look, like I'm super fucking competent and like we'll go to war for anything.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? I remember my first deal was like this shitty $18,000 like firehouse.
Stop.
Yeah. I made like $250 on it, but I was like so aggressive at the time that like we were like
All
struggling.
that paperwork for $250.
Yeah. But I mean, I was like, I
Yeah.
just wanted to get deals under my
For
belt.
sure, yeah.
But like, I remember I was so aggressive at the time and I didn't even really realize like what I was doing, that on that first deal, we were like struggling to come to terms on this deal. And finally the agent was like, all right, like we're less than $1,000 away. Like I'll cut my commission to like make this thing happen. Like
Yeah.
you willing to meet me halfway? And I was like, absolutely fucking not. Like, and she took no commission.
No way.
Yeah. And I took the commission on this deal. And it was just like petty. Like I look back
sure.
at it, but I was like, nah, I'm getting
I need
mine.
this. Yeah.
And it was like so insignificant. You know
For
what
sure.
I mean? But so like ultimately I go on, I'm smashing inside of real estate, you know, for like what it was at the time. I mean, I'd made some really good money. I'd
Mm-hmm.
had some, you know, $20,000-$30,000 months at the time. And like, it was insane.
Feeling when you have, because I remember having my first months and I was like thinking, what the fuck? Like I couldn't even believe it, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Neither
Like,
could I. I wasn't even counting. And finally, the chick that I was working for, who is actually like, she's my wife's aunt, and she was a tremendous like mentor to me. Like, really taught me about like law of attraction and like aligning like intention and action and like. She really, really, really helped me a lot. I mean, her name's Michelle Cantrell, and she's a legendary real estate agent all over. And I was super lucky to work under her.
For sure.
And like she was great. And so she was helping me like kind of get aligned with like who I was and what I wanted. And like I just ultimately like didn't want to be part of real estate, you know, like at real estate sales, and at least not at the residential capacity. And so I thought, okay, one of my buddies who was like one of my only buddies to
So
ever.
is this just when you start making money now, you realize you don't want to do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and so part of this too is so right after I started working for her, I started drinking again. So I met this chick.
Is this the relapse?
Yeah, this is the relapse. And so I met this chick who was working there.
If you don't mind, like I want to, if you can be as descriptive as possible, because I like people to like, all mine, if I would have looked, I could have pre-saw my relapses happening. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's descriptive where your mindset
So
is
I
before.
can, you know what I mean? It's like I stopped going to meetings every day. I was just white knuckling for a while, and it's like I hadn't properly worked the steps. Like I grew up in an agnostic family. I pretty much hated religion my entire life, and like I couldn't get around the God part of working step 2,
sure,
3.
yeah.
I didn't even get to 4.
twins,
I didn't
bro,
even
yeah.
get to 4. And because of that, I just like meetings were enough to just like keep me fresh, but like I wasn't getting any of the real solution that I needed. And ultimately, I white knuckled it for long enough until there was a combustion. You know what I mean?
It's only good enough until something happens. And you have to like deal with it.
Yep. And so what happened is I got into real estate and I was like in these circles, and then I met this chick who's my wife now. And she was older than me. She was 3 years older. She had her shit together. And like, I really, really like wanted to be normal and be like cool and be like what like I thought she would want. And so I went and had a couple beers one night. I was like, all right, I'm going to fucking drink because I've got something to lose now. Like I'm like, you know.
So now are you thinking like I can at least make myself behave and not go crazy because I have shit to behave for?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, 100%.
All right.
And
God,
I was like, you know, I've got this
too.
career now. I made $15,000 last month. I've got.
There's no way I could fuck this up, right?
Yeah, I've got this amazing woman who's like starting to become interested in me, and like my efforts there are like showing results. And so I go and have a couple beers. I go to bed, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you did it, buddy! Like we're fucking jamming. It's game on." And then,
Because are you thinking the next morning like, all right, I had a couple beers and fucking
yeah, I'm like, I had a couple
down.
beers
I'm
and went to
okay.
bed, and like we did
I got
it.
this.
Yeah, we
did it. We did it. Dude, addicts' minds are fucking
it's
hilarious,
wild,
bro.
dude.
Yeah.
It's wild. And so like within a week, I was like doing blow in like the middle of the day, like literally 7 days later.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. And then my relapse was like pretty severe. So I go to, you know, I take this trip to Vegas with Hannah, and I was all strung out the night before doing blow, and so I was up all night, and then like I was super like strung out and anxious on the plane.
No more drinking 2 beers?
No, dude, I was fucking hammered. I was hammered. I'd probably.
Do you remember how many you drank the second time?
Dude, probably 10.
Okay,
You know what
yeah.
I mean?
It was
10,
the one time it
12.
was 2.5
Like,
hours of wrap,
yeah,
huh? Yeah.
it was over instantly. That was the one time I kept it
Yeah.
together. And so then I get to Vegas. I've been up for, maybe 36 hours, strung out on coke. And I'm like, fuck, I'm really not feeling good. I'm going to start like just ripping old fashions. And by like 3 p.m., we land at noon. And by like 3 p.m., I was like getting kicked off tables. My friends were there. Hannah and I like got into this fight. And I pretty much like, we were staying at Bally's, and
You were in the Vegas trip before you even get to Vegas?
Yeah. And so, I mean, I was 4 hours into the trip, and I punched through the window at Bally's, which, like, I don't think you're supposed to be able to do. This is like my bedroom, my like hotel room window, 7 floors up, thick.
Oh, yeah.
Thick glass. And I mean, like, I was running gear at the time, like working out a lot. I was like really strong, but like I still don't think I should have been able to punch through that. So I don't know how it happened, but I punched through this window. I pull back, and as I pull back, I cut my arm. I mean, dude, there's a scar from here to here. I have no feeling from here to here. I had hit an artery. Blood was spraying all over the room. And it was really wild, and I was just kind of like out of it, and like Hannah called 911. I'm like in the ambulance, and this dude's like, "You're for sure going to lose your arm," and I was like, "Fuck." I was like, what I said to him, I said, "Be a fucking optimist, dude. Like that's fucked up that you just said that."
Yeah.
Because the other, like, I could see the other like paramedics were like.
Dude, I was this close to getting out of prison with one arm after 12 fucking years, bro.
Dude. 6
months like before I got out of the hole, bro, and I was in there and had an abscess in my arm. And when I come back from the hospital, the doctor, the first thing he says to me is he goes, "Holy shit, you kept your arm." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I thought the next time I saw you, you're going to only have one arm." And I'm like, "Oh my God. Do you think I still stop using?"
Dude, I didn't either. Like that was the thing. I
was like, I got my arm. Why would I stop?
Yeah, exactly, dude. You're like, I'll just change veins.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. Can you hit me in my other arm now?
Yeah, exactly. And so, I get this thing stitched up. I'm in the ER. It was crazy. Like there were these 2 dudes there who had shot each other. And so, like, if you've ever been around someone who gets shot, like the agony that they're in is like a very specific sound. And these 2 dudes had shot each other in a fight. Stop. And then Hannah was in the like waiting room, emergency room, and their 2 families were there fighting.
Stop.
It was crazy, bro. And all the while, like I'm like really fucking wasted. My blood's super thin. They can't put me under.
For sure.
And so they have to perform this surgery with me awake.
Damn, bro.
Yeah, and so they had to. I mean, you could see nerves sticking out of my arms. So like I didn't know what nerves looked like, but now I do. And like. I mean, it looked like someone had taken a shotgun to my arm. Like the picture's crazy.
No.
And so they had to sew this thing back up from the inside, just me awake. And, like that was really fucked up. It was really fucked up, man. I had like some serious like post-traumatic stress
for sure
from that one. I drank for about another month, and then we were at this like Keller Williams like work event. And basically, I got caught doing blow in the bathroom by like all the people I worked for and like cared about. They were kind of like my like work family at the time. And that night just became like really dramatic. I tried to like slit my wrist open, and
been there.
Yeah, and I just woke up the next morning and went to a meeting and been sober.
And you've been sober since then?
Been sober ever since.
That's fucking dope, bro. All right, cool. And so how old were you? The 23?
I was 22 or maybe 23.
And then, so what did you get into then? Did you get out of real estate?
I did real estate for a little bit longer because I was paying the bills. I had bought a house.
How'd you make your exit from real estate?
I was kind of like, look, I'm out of here. And
saved up some money and just dipped, or what?
Yeah, like a little bit of money, and then I took this sales job at the time to like hold me over for like a couple months, and then my first sponsor in AA was like the only dude I knew in AA who was like successful and sober, and I like fucked with him. Like he was he was my kind of guy.
For sure.
And I was always really like intrigued by him and what he did. And so I I was like, look, man, like I just want to like know more about what you do. And he was kind of just like he's like a really creative dude in the call center space. And so I just kind of like met his network and like ended up like learning how to like broker contracts there. And so like for like 12 months, maybe 18 months, I was like brokering call center deals and was making pretty decent money.
Okay.
But like all the money that I was making came down to like these two clients who were like pretty fucking neurotic and like caused me massive amounts of stress. And so at this time I had proposed. We're maybe 6 months out from getting married.
Okay.
My wife gets pregnant. And I'm like, okay, like I just really don't want to go into this phase of my life. I was 24.
Okay.
When I like got married and had my son. I guess I had my son at 25, but I was 24 when I got married. And I was like, dude, like I don't want to go into this phase of my life, like just like hating my work life and like carrying around this stress. And so I had like banked some cash and I was like, I'm going to just step away and like regroup and like figure out what my next move is, you know? And so I was like unemployed, you know what I mean? Like had tons of time on my hands, like went on my honeymoon and I like downloaded Instagram because I like had nothing to do and I had never had one before. I just like the app that like that platform itself didn't really interest me. I didn't know much about social.
Dude, I talk shit about people on Instagram. When I got out of prison, I was like, dude, what are you guys doing on this stupid ass app?
Yeah, and so like I just didn't understand social or its application or use case and like what the power.
You got to figure it out now, though.
Yeah, totally. But I downloaded it and I saw that people were like speaking and coaching and like making a life out of that and like creating content. And I was like, oh, that makes sense that people are doing that. Like, I'll do that. And like it was real simple. I didn't think much about it. Like I didn't doubt anything. At this point, I had proved to myself that I could like create results. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. That makes sense. I knew that I had liked working with men in AA.
Yeah.
Right. Talking about a lot of that deep, like traumatic stuff. I really, really enjoyed that. And I liked the idea of making money. At the time, I thought I knew a lot about business. Looking back, I knew nothing.
Yeah.
But I was like, cool, I'll do that. And so I started creating some content. And like that was kind of the start of like who I am now.
Okay. That's dope.
It was wild.
So and then I don't even know exactly what you do. I do want to get into that fucking boot camp thing because I've showed that to 100 different people and I fucking get goosebumps every time. Robin, here you go. Here's your shout in the show because she likes to try and get into every one of my fucking episodes. So I was going to show Robin but I didn't know if I had enough time to get round up, but I've showed so many people that. So what, and I don't even know exactly what is that. And then, I don't know, it's just fucking badass. So people got to go look at your Instagram and check out that boot camp video or tell me what the hell that even is.
Yeah. So that's an event that we run. And so We'll get into that. Okay. We'll get into that. So like I want to keep running through the storyline. Yeah. So it's like I get into that and I'm like trying to figure out like how to make this thing happen. You know what I mean? And I end up like at the time in 2018, like the young entrepreneur circle was like super cliquey online. And not that it's not now, but it's much bigger now than it was in 2018. It was a real small group
For sure.
And I found like I kept trying to get in with these guys and finally one of them's like, hey, I'm doing an event. I was like, rad, like I want to come speak there. I got on the phone with him. I was like, I want to come speak there. He's like, not a chance. And I was like, huh. I was like, I'll pay you 5 G's to come speak there.
Stop.
Yeah. And he was like, okay, yeah, like we can make that work. You can like moderate some panels and like maybe like talk about your story a little bit. And so this event was in New York at the Dream Hotel. And
I've never heard of someone trying to pay to get on their shit. So that's cool.
I was like, I'll fucking like, what do I got to do?
Dope. Good idea. Yeah.
And so I was at the Dream Hotel in Manhattan, and dude, I go to this event. There's maybe like 150 people, and I'm like on stage moderating these panels. I'm like talking about my story with addiction and like finding success, and people were just loving it, man. And like after everybody was coming up to me, they were like, "Hey, that like really resonated with me. Like, it was so cool." Like, and dude, it like. I'll never forget that experience. Like, I was just like, it was such a good vibe. And
like, it's my calling, huh?
I was like, this is exactly what I was put on this earth to do. And so I go home and I decide that I'm going to start a coaching program. And I call like probably 15 people from that event. And I'm like, yo, like, I don't know what I'm about to say or do, but like, you're going to give me $2,500 and we're going to work together for 90 days and like good shit's going to happen. And like 5 of them said yes.
Stop.
And I was like, tight, like, let's roll. And so I just started coaching this like little small group of guys. And I didn't really...
And just went off to self-taught shit, whatever you thought was the right moves.
Dude, we were just getting after it.
The example you can use so many fucking times, it's like, and it's my let said, it's like, just get in the room. And that goes to as far as like making connections or something like that, or figuring shit out like that. It's like, get in the room, just fucking get there and figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, I didn't get like, that's one thing that is like a superpower for me is like, I don't really overcomplicate shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like real fucking.
Seem like it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like real, like, let's do it, or like, let's not. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, we could fail miserably and like, I'm fine.
What were you, did you think those dudes were going to say yes? And once they did, were you like, fuck, all right, what do I do now? Or did you kind of have a plan?
No, I mean, I had no plan, but
So like, what did you do then? Just start texting them, coaching them, or
looking
what?
back, it's like, looking back now and knowing what I know, it's like, I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like, I should have been thinking those things. Looking back, I'm like, dude, you knew nothing. And I don't know what the fuck you were doing. But like at the time...
Did you charge them $2,500 just to get your cell phone number and text you or what? Like,
I was like, look, like, we're
you didn't have a platform or anything, right, at that time made? No way, right?
No.
Yeah.
No. And I was like, look, like, we're going to get on group calls. Because like I had hired a coach who was like, not good. I won't say his name. He was terrible.
Okay.
But like he implanted the idea of like a group coaching model to me.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, cool. Like,
At least he did something.
Totally. I mean, I was like, I took that piece of information and made millions with it, so
Yeah,
it was
there you
fine. But I was like, all right, yeah, we're gonna be a group. And so during that time too, I met a guy named Nick Long and a guy named Troy Hoffman, and these were guys who have been huge mentors to me.
Okay.
But they were early warrior guys. Like they had gotten coached under Garrett.
Okay.
And so like they kind of like exposed me to the idea of brotherhood and like the power of community, and like they were kind of in this like golden era of Warrior, where like the first 50 guys in Warrior, like that was like a golden era for them. It was like that's when Sean Whalen was there.
Oh shit!
It's when
right.
like all the bang. I mean, like Travis Rosser, founder of Kajabi, like
Gotcha.
fucking
dudes.
Russ Perry, the founder of Design Pickle, like all these banger players were in there. But I always just like really resonated with them, and like kind of wanted to build a young version of that. You know what I mean? A younger guy version. Because they were like, 40, 50-year-old guys, married kids. And I was 25.
Damn, that's crazy, bro.
Yeah. But, we just got on group calls and like I talked about what they were struggling with. They were business owners and we were just getting after it, man, for a long time. And
were there mostly life struggles or business struggles or sobriety? Do you remember? Or was
dude,
it
was
all
like
just a mix of everything?
A mix of everything,
Okay.
dude. It was like I was just a super symptomatic coach, right?
sure.
They were like, "Here's what I'm struggling with." I'm like, "Cool." Like, here's what I think about that. Most of the time, just like figuring it out on the fly.
Yeah.
But then, dude, it just started to grow. I started to get on the speaking circuit in 2019. I was speaking like all the like small, like small entrepreneur events. It's like 200 people, like.
Yep.
Little mastermind, whatever. I was like always invited to speak at those. Like I was really gaining momentum. I was like ready to like figure out how to level up into the next level of speaking. But then COVID hit. And like all the events went away. And so like I wasn't speaking. And I really like struggled with this business for a long time. I like made a lot less money than I was used to making.
Okay.
But like the mission was really important. It's like, look, like what do we do at Wake Up Wealthy? Like what I'll say is that it's like, hey, like we reprogram your mind, we optimize your habits, we scale your business, right? But it's like really like at the ethos and the heart of the company, it's like we're here to heal men, right? From generational trauma, to put them in a place of power where they can go out and create a life by design and like put an end to that cycle of generational trauma that like you guys like you and I have experienced and we've all experienced, right? Like we heal guys, that's what we do. And like,
sure.
yes, we're tremendous business consultants, like we get it. You know what I mean? And so like, if you fast forward, this thing has really, really grown. You know what I mean? Over the last 4 years, we've worked with 600 business owners and
damn, bro.
I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of business models. And like one day we just kind of saw the matrix. Like I just kind of got business. I was like, oh shit, I'm like a real deal entrepreneur now.
Yeah.
Like I've worked on so many problems, so many businesses that like, I just fucking get it.
That's dope.
And like when I figured out that I got it, I was like, oh, I'm thinking small. Cause like even these like online businesses, it's like they're just not that big. You know what I mean? You can get rich running one of these, but it's like the ceiling for like the top 5% of our guys in this industry are doing between 10 and 20 million. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And they're super profitable, great margins. It's sick. They're ripping cash. But it's like, I'm like, I think I'm bigger than like 15 or 20 million in sales. And like, I think I want to see if I can like go really big. And there's a few outliers. Cole Gordon, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, like those guys all have 50 million plus organizations. I don't know if Cole's is 50. I think it is, but he'll be there. He's great.
For sure.
He's out here. Have you had him on? Cole Gordon?
No.
Yeah, dude's a fucking beast. Get him on.
Dope.
He's like one of the only coaching programs that I've ever joined that I was like super happy with.
Really?
Yeah.
What's his first name?
Cole.
Cole Gordon?
Cole Gordon.
Dope.
Yeah, he's a sales guy. He's fucking tremendous. And so I like started to think bigger. I started to think that like, hey, I could be bigger than this coaching industry. But I'm never going to stop Wake Up Wealthy. Like that's my fucking passion. But I also like wanted to stay in my lane. I'm like, what am I like really great at? Like I'm honestly not that great of an executor. You know what I mean? Like where I've become really good is as a strategist and as a coach and like getting people to execute. Like I'm kind of a messy executor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I know my lane. Like I'm not the perfect CEO. I'm a tremendous visionary and like,
for sure,
like really good strategist, but like, I'm not the perfect, just like operator.
As long as you have a good counterpart with you, bro, that's all that matters.
Yeah, totally. And so, but I was like, how can I do more of what I love and create bigger upside? And this is kind of when like Hormozy was coming around the scene and like talking about doing acquisitions. And I was like, I guess I could come in instead of like, I guess I could come into a company, do the same type of work and like own a percentage. And so, and then like work with companies that have the potential to exit and like create an upside, right? I'm like, I do the same type of work, I get paid and there's upside potential. And like, this wasn't like an original thought to me. Obviously, like tons of people have done acquisitions and whatever. But it was new to coaching. And like one of my mentors, Nick Long, he was like kind of starting to do it. And like was also pushing me on the idea. And so at the end of 2020, I founded Logic Ventures, which is essentially right now, it's just a holdings company. We have 6 companies in the portfolio. We've done, a handful of acquisitions throughout last year. And so now we've got our first cohort of companies, right? We've got maximum, like the max amount that we can handle right now, but it's like these companies are growing. There's CEOs in place, and it's like in the next 3 to 5 years, we should exit at least half of them. And then we've got the start of what'll be like a VC private equity fund. You know what I mean? Well, that's when we can like really get started.
Yeah, damn.
And so like Jay owns that 50-50 with me.
Okay.
He owns Logic with me, and then he's also the CEO or COO at Wake Up Wealthy.
Damn, bro.
And
big time shit right there.
Yeah, and like one day I was just like, oh shit, I'm thinking small. You know what I mean? I was like, I can think bigger. Let's fucking go for it.
Yeah.
And we've done it, and it's been super challenging to manage that much, but it's working.
All right, real quick now, tell me the boot camp. Is someone paying for you to talk to them like that?
Yes, they are.
Right, that's
That's
what I got to get into.
They are. And so, okay, so like
He's laughing over there.
I talked about how, Wake Up Wealthy, what we do is we reprogram your mind, optimize your habits, help you scale your business, right?
Yeah.
Everybody starts in a 90-day program with us. They go through the brotherhood. They're a part of like a really strong community of guys who want to see them win. Egos checked at the door. Nobody's posturing. People are being vulnerable, sharing their shit. It's like a fucking AA meeting.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's like an AA meeting for entrepreneurs. It's tight. And we have like the most engaged and like genuine community in the online space, and like everybody knows it.
That's dope.
But so like that's our initial 90-day program. Now after that, there's more to come. And so we wanted to start doing these live events. We call it Evolve. And I keep the details of Evolve vague and mysterious because guys need to not know what they're getting into. Guys coming into the experience have absolutely no idea what's going on. All they've seen are like the videos. But it is the truest form of Wake Up Wealthy. It is like Evolve is the perfect representation of what it means to walk the way of life that we talk about at Wake Up Wealthy. It's a physical experience where we break guys down physically so that they open up emotionally and they all bond together. We can cut straight to the heart because the physical aspect of it bypasses all the defenses. You know what I mean? And so the guys just end up open. There's so much crying, so much release, so much fucking heavy shit being moved. It's a truly special event. I mean, it's life-changing for anyone to be a part of it.
Yeah, bro. And it's like I said, this shit gave me goosebumps like crazy, bro. It just looked really, really dope.
It's awesome, man.
Last thing, and I'm for sure having you back in January. I already got you booked on, I think so. What are your next upcoming goals this year? And then I always want to try and get some advice for anybody. I do it for dudes, a lot of dudes in prison, because that's like kind of my passion. But any dudes struggling, trying to get sober, some just any bit of little advice on trying to take that next step. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And then we'll get out of here at that, bro. This has been some fire shit, bro.
Yeah, dude.
Your story's insane, bro. Seriously, it's really cool, bro.
Yeah, it's wild. I haven't like laid it out in a while.
Yeah.
But
I'm
yeah,
just sitting here listening like a viewer, bro. I'm just like this.
totally. Yeah. Really rest of the year, we're plugging forward. We've got a lot of planning to do around, hey, where do we want to take Logic next year? Do we want to focus on our current cohort of companies? Do we want to do any more acquisitions? What needs to be built and like automated and delegated in order for us to be able to do more acquisitions and manage it, as well as scaling up Wake Up Wealthy a little bit more. Like, we won't indefinitely scale Wake Up Wealthy. Like, we'll take Wake Up Wealthy to a certain point where it's like we reach a good level of like comfortable.
Just smashing there.
Yeah, and just maintain. Now, the beautiful thing about our setup is that like Wake Up Wealthy is becoming a deal flow pipeline for the acquisition engine. You know what I mean? So guys come through all our programs. We've been around them for a year, 2 years. We know them. We know the nature of how they work. We know their weaknesses, their strengths, and it's like we know their businesses. And so it's like we can pick from the cream of the crop to come in and invest in and partner with. And so it's like just keeping that engine flowing for the next 10 years.
It's like a lead source, bro.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lead source. And that's the thing a lot of acquisition guys don't have is deal flow. And it's like I'm curating it here inside of Wake Up Wealthy. But it's like really just continuing to do what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like we're on a push to really double Wake Up Wealthy right now. It's like we maybe worked with a few hundred guys this year, and like I'd like it to be like 1,000 a year.
Okay, dope, bro.
And so like getting it to that point. But other than that, just more of the same. You know what I mean? It's like business is totally mechanical. It's just an iterative game, right? Like you just build a hypothesis, you test solutions, and you look at the feedback, and you either iterate or like move on to the next thing. Yeah. And so it's like
seems so simple.
Just continuing to follow business mechanics and growing people and team and working on complex shit. It's like that's what I get off on. It's like I like complex problem solving, and I like having my head in the game. I like doing deals. And so just continuing to do that stuff, spending time with my family, like
that's right.
Like I like being there with my son. And like I don't really need much that I don't have. Like there's some areas that like I'd like maybe a little less stress or whatever, but it's like life is seasonal and cyclical. It's like there are times when I'm mad stressed and there are times when I'm not, and it's like that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
dude, what a crazy story, and it's crazy how similar our stories are. Like just like. That's how addicts talk, though. You're talking. I'm like, oh
totally.
my god,
Like,
that's me, bro. It's
that's
like,
me.
Yeah. I haven't sat here and thought that for Tommy Beck's about the same one. Like when he's talking, I'm just like, holy shit, that's me, dude. But man, what an insane story. I'm glad we got to meet, and it's such an inspirational story. Thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody else what your Instagram is and stuff, and how to find you and stuff on there also too.
Yeah. So my Instagram is @BrodyKern, BRODIEKERN. Pretty easy to find, and it's like the thing that I'll leave you with is like. I don't care who you are, what you're struggling with. I don't care if you're just getting out of prison, just getting out of rehab, just getting started in your business. It's like, if you ever need anything, use me as a resource. Like I say this on every podcast, like I'm a real fucking dude who's been through it. And like, I've got minimal fucking, I would like to say no ego, but I'm an alcoholic, but it's like, I don't like express that shit. You know what I mean? Like I set out on a life to help men heal, and like I walk that walk. And so like you ever need anything, reach out to me, man. Like I'll do anything I can to help you. I'll get you you're struggling. I'll get you. I mean, I've had guys reach out to me on Instagram, and I've gotten them into rehab. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I'll do whatever it takes to help you. And so like you don't have to feel alone. Like the thing about addiction, the thing about entrepreneurship, the thing about anything really challenging is that it's super isolating, and like you don't have to be alone. Like that's a choice. And like I promise you, like maybe you asking for help, some people will turn you down, but like some people won't, and just keep looking for it, because like that's what puts people on a new path, and that's what changes lives, is like people getting help. And there's no pride and no value in doing it alone. It's painful and it's hard, and it doesn't have to be that hard.
I got goosebumps for the 6th time. I'm out of here at that, dude. Thank you guys for tuning in, dude. Thank you fucking so much.
Totally.
This shit was fire, bro. Have an awesome week. Thank you so much for being here again, Brody, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and leave us some feedback. We would love to know what you think. You can find everything discussed in this episode and more in our show notes below or petermyeroff.com. I am Peter Myeroff, and you've been listening to the Roll Call with Chappie podcast.